Hi guys, Russell here, and I'm doing my blog this time from Vietnam. And right now I'm on the 22nd floor of the Rusaka Hotel in Nha Trang. And Nha Trang is a coastal resort city on the south coast of Vietnam. It's frequented by a lot of Russians and a lot of Chinese, and we actually are sharing the rooftop pool, and you can see the horizon pool here behind me. We're sharing it with a whole bunch of Chinese tourists, so if you see people wandering around in the background, they're sharing the space up here with us. And so this is an opportunity to do something a little different today, and I want to talk about some of my experience here and how it relates to my latest blog. The blog series that I'm doing is on pragmatic laziness, and this whole idea that change and stillness comes as a result of situational awareness or pragmatic laziness, and it's this whole notion of that change is a direct result of awareness. And it's kind of interesting that in our Western culture, the way that we solicit change is through action. So in other words, our way of approaching change is through getting out and doing things. And in the blog that I've written, I've talked about this whole notion of having to go on a diet to lose weight, to stop smoking in order, to quit smoking in order to stop smoking. And that we actually have to use discipline to be able to do it. And of course, pragmatic laziness is this whole idea that change happens as a result of being aware. So in this blog, I talk about what gets in the way of being able to sustain change and what gets in the way of being pragmatically lazy. And of course, I talk about the fact that we each have a personal narrative or a set of beliefs that we project onto the world, which creates the reality. And of course, what happens is we think that we've got to make change by going out and manipulating the external environment in order to change what it is that we're experiencing. Whereas pragmatic laziness says that all we have to do is sit in the place of being aware and shift what's happening within us from living life through the filters of our story, our narrative which emerged out of our formative years, to being able to be in the place of observing what is without that story, and being able to see that we are able to create a parallel reality, that we're able to find a whole new way of experiencing life when we can let go of our story. Now I want to share an example of that on my time here in Vietnam. If you've had the opportunity to be here, or if you haven't, I can tell you that the traffic is chaotic. It is the most amazing, orderly chaos you've ever seen. It's like nobody obeys or rarely obeys traffic lights, and scooters in particular, of which there are hundreds of thousands of these things. And of course, it appears that it's quite perilous trying to cross a road here because of the hundreds of thousands of scooters that are sort of going every which way. And when you go to an intersection, let me tell you, it's a thing to watch. And if you, any of you are on my personal Facebook page, go and have a look at some of the videos that I uploaded of those traffic situations. Now, what I realised was that I was bringing my programmed Australian consciousness about how traffic should be to this situation, and that my response was in direct relationship to how I perceived the traffic should be organised. And it was interesting that while I was in that place, I could be quite fearful because of the chaotic nature of what was going on, and crossing a road was incredibly challenging. But once I let go of that programmed belief that that's how traffic should be, that there should be rules and order and rights associated with who's got rights, and took the time to observe how it was here, and what I realised, there's an absolute pecking order as it relates to traffic here. The bigger the vehicle, the more right of way you have, and the smaller the vehicle, the less that you have. And as human beings, you fit somewhere between the pecking order of the scooter and the car. So in other words, you've got to give way to the cars and everything else, but ultimately with the scooters you can walk out onto the road and it's like they make their way around you. And of course, in Australia, you come to a crossing, a zebra, and there's lots of zebra crossings here, but they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything to anybody who's driving a vehicle. And so you just cross the road with this realization that there is this sort of unspoken order in which you're able to engage the traffic. And of course what happens is you can just safely and slowly make your way across the street without any concerns. But to be able to do that required me first to let go of my programmed thoughts about what it was to have to function in traffic in order for traffic to be manageable. And of course over here, none of the rules that function within our Australian culture matter here or have any significance. So here was an example where letting go of my programmed beliefs about how something should be allowed me to move out of my fear around it and allowed me to really appreciate the beauty that goes on at a major intersection when you watch all these vehicles sort of going every which way, and yet they're able to do it. And we saw one or two people that have been hit in this time, but when you consider how many tens of thousands of scooters there are on these roads and what they're doing, it's surprising that there aren't hundreds of people that have had accidents, but every day, but they're not. And so it's this whole idea that when we can let go of our programming, and that's what I write about in this blog, is that the one thing that stops us from being able to be in our healthiest, in our with clarity and freedom and a sense of joy in living, the thing that stops that is our programming. And so once, for example, and the example I'm giving here is once I was able to let go of my programmed thinking around traffic, I was able to really enjoy the experience of traffic and to watch the beauty in terms of how the whole thing played out here. Anyway, pragmatic laziness is an interesting topic, and as I finish off with in the blog, I talk about the whole fact that developing new neural pathways is really about pragmatic laziness. And maybe we'll extend this and do an extra blog next time where we cover the whole notion of neural pathways. Anyway, thank you for paying attention and listening to what I've got to say this week. I hope you enjoy the blog, and we'll catch up in a couple of weeks' time. And so from here in Vietnam and behind me, you can see the horizon pool and you can see the South China Sea. I'll be back home in a few days and back into doing what I do on a regular basis, which is all about the EAP program. I'll speak to you again soon. Catch you later. Bye.